South Africa's black middle class has more than doubled in less than a decade, according to a new study from the University of Cape Town. This emerging group is a boost to the growing economy, but challenges remain.
VOA's Anita Powell looked into this story and talked with On Assignment's Todd Grosshans. Let's start with part of her report.
The Cape Town researchers said middle-class households make between $1,800 and $5,500 a month.
The next video
Tabang Ramahase, a marketer, says companies need to understand this emerging class before trying to sell to them.
People think just because you're black middle class, your destination is to become like white people.
Thabang Ramahase, what he told you was that companies in South Africa need to understand how to market to the black middle class. He doesn't think they're getting that right. What does he mean by that?
He listed many pressures that the black middle class face that don't even really register for members of the white middle class. For example, the most common type of household in the black middle class is a multi-generational household, whereas the most common type of household in the white middle class is a nuclear family.
If anything, you just want the stuff that white people have, and some of that stuff, not all of it as well. There's a lot of mixing and matching. There's some things I'll take and some things I won't take as a black middle-class consumer. That's the first thing, so don't want to be white.
He was just trying to illustrate that just because we may have the same amount of money, just because we may have similar education, there are many more pressures he feels on the black middle class. There's pressure to help your relatives. There's pressure to move onward. There's pressure to make more money. I think he's just trying to say, if you want to sell to the black middle class, perhaps these creative ad agencies, which are overwhelmingly white, need to hire a few smart young black advertising whizzes and put them to work.
There is still a huge economic disparity in the country. There's this small, and I mean small, black middle class that's actually doing quite well considering. Then there's a huge amount of very poor people in this country. And then there's that sliver of the extremely wealthy. Is there class resentment, especially between this emerging black middle class and the poor classes in South Africa?
It's really funny that you ask that, and this is a very peculiar thing to South Africa. I don't feel that there is resentment between the poor, indigent, or working class black South Africans and the middle class black South Africans, and that is because of something we were talking about earlier, which is credit. With the availability of credit, and now with the lack of availability of credit, many black middle-class South Africans have elected not to move. So many of them are living in communities that are regarded as working poor or even poor communities because they realize that they can get more bang for their buck. They don't have to get an expensive home loan, and they can still have a BMW, still have satellite television, still have an iPhone, and so on and so forth. So really, they're living among everybody they used to know, and the communities are quite mixed.
I just started to work hard, to basically have the sort of values that will see you putting your nose to the grindstone, giving your best, that sort of thing.
Their neighbors see that and say, gee, I could have a Mercedes maybe if I make sure my daughter goes to college. So I don't think there's resentment there. Where I think there is both resentment and admiration is between the lower and middle classes and the elite in South Africa. There's definitely a perception, and it's grounded in fact, that some of the richer South Africans, we're not naming names here, but some of the wealthier South Africans may have gotten there through unsavory means. Corruption is very big in this country.
Many South Africans still live in crushing poverty. And some new members of the middle class say they're already disillusioned with their government.
It encourages people to be corrupt. It doesn't encourage middle class. It doesn't encourage people to work, because the more you work, the more you get taxed.
However, other up-and-coming black South Africans, like advertising account manager Belinda Mangila, say they're optimistic.
I think we still have a long way to go, and I think, the future is bright for anyone in this country.
One really interesting thing that the researchers at UCT told me was when they started doing their research on the black middle class, the African National Congress, that's the ruling party in South Africa, was not really keen on this demographic, didn't support their research. I believe they insulted their research in some publication. And now, with the release of this latest report 8 years later, the ANC put out a statement saying, we're so glad that the black middle class is getting bigger. And this is because the ANC realizes that they need this demographic. This is a literate, educated, fairly affluent demographic, and they need them.
VOA's Anita Powell in Johannesburg. Anita reports that despite recent gains, some 4.5 million South Africans are still out of work, and that's a whopping 25% of workers, placing South Africa in the top 30 countries with the highest unemployment.